Welcome back to season 6 of the Breakthrough Show, Breakthroughs Around the World, conversations with 40 guests from 40 different countries in an effort to acknowledge our similarities, honor our differences, and celebrate our connection. I'm your host, Jessica Dugas, and I'm super excited to be with you for another episode today. For season 6, episode 18, I'm scared. I'll be honest with you, I'm scared because our guest today knows how to read faces. This is what he does in his work. So I told him when we met initially, I said, look, I'm scared, but I know he's a gentle soul. I know I have nothing to worry about, but he combines different skills he has, including FBI techniques, to help him and teach people how to read people for sales, negotiation, etc. And so I'm really excited to have him on the show today. So without further ado, representing the country of Ireland, let's welcome Joseph McGuire to the show. Welcome, Joseph.
Oh, thank you so much, Jessica. Absolutely delighted to be here. And in your honor, as you can see, I have a special green screen.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm thrilled to have you here today. And do I have anything to worry about, Joseph?
No, your halo is glowing.
Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Well, I'm excited that you're going to represent the country of Ireland today. And it's one of the countries that I had on my list in hopes that we would get somebody to come on. And I have some friends of mine who visit Ireland often. They had found out a long while ago that their ancestors had come from there. So they go often to feel connected to that. But I would love to hear from your perspective, Joseph. What are the things that you love most about Ireland?
Okay, well, we start with the sun when it occasionally shines, as it has today. So we're certainly very blessed indeed. I guess the favorite things particularly are the places, special places in nature here. There's like my absolute favorite place is a place called Glendalough. And Glendalough is a translation from the Irish, which means the Glen of the Two Lakes. And it's a site. It was a site of one of the earliest monasteries here. I think in about the 6th century, Saint Kevin, and you can still see the remains of some of the settlements there. But it's an incredibly beautiful, atmospheric place. The only place that compares to it for me is Yosemite. So anybody who's been to Yosemite and knows the absolute majesty of Yosemite will get the same or something similar in Glendalough, because it has such a if you ever feel like in the presence of the divine, Glendalough has that for me. So that's really the most special place. But there are other very special places. The lakes around Killarney in the southwest. We've got some ancient. We've got a place called Newgrange, which is not so far from where I am in Dublin. It's about an hour's drive from Dublin, and Newgrange is an old. I should get the term right. I'm not sure whether it's megalithic or Paleolithic place. It's a chamber, which was. It's understood it was a burial chamber, but there are some people who have the view that it may also have been an initiation chamber, because when you on the solstice, summer and winter solstice, when the sun rises, the sunlight travels slowly through the main passage all the way to the back of the chamber. So the ancients obviously knew something about how nature worked, and it's a site that's actually much older than the pyramids of Egypt. So it's a very special place.
That's fascinating. I was looking at some of the there were some old ruins that were found in Connecticut where I grew up, and they're not nearly that old. But it was similar things where they found holes in the structures that would let light in at a certain amount of time, which is very interesting to learn about that they knew so much more than I think we give them credit for sometimes.
Absolutely. We like to think we're wise and well developed and advanced, but one wonders.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I know, so I have to ask you about this because we have this idea here in the United States, St. Patrick's Day and everything else that y'all drink a lot over there. We just have this idea that that's all you do is sit around and drink Irish beer and Irish whiskey, and that's the end of the story. Is that the actual case, Joseph?
I don't think we'd get much done if that were the actual case. There's one. I mean, part of it is obviously marketing,
Yeah, right.
because I mean Guinness is one of our big national exports. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of alcohol drunk on the island. Not much, not much by me, but there is a lot of alcohol drunk, and a lot of tourists like to come here and sample the
I'm
wares.
sure.
But yeah, there's a lot of mythology there too.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's part of I've been asking kind of these semi-silly
Of
questions for
course.
these series because we get these ideas in our head that things are a certain way in certain places, and that's
Of
not
course.
actually the case.
Yeah.
I will tell you though, Guinness was when I drank years ago, that it was the only beer I liked, and now I like to make beer bread from the Guinness, which is delicious.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I appreciate what you guys bring to the world where the beer is concerned. I also we made some Irish whiskey cupcakes recently that were
Very
pretty good.
nice.
Pretty
Yeah.
good, Joseph.
Yes.
Though tell me about like the food and stuff there in Ireland. Are there anything that's in particular that you think of this is a very Irish dish?
Well, I'm probably not the person to ask about it because I haven't eaten anything that would resemble traditional Irish food for
Mm.
many, many years. In fact, the first type of cooking I actually learned was Japanese,
Ah,
so I've never cooked Irish food. And my
wow.
my partner is Chinese, so she cooks authentic Chinese food. So my
Ah,
preference is all for Oriental food
mm.
rather than Western. I mean, you do get people who do love the bacon and cabbage, but
Yeah.
Ireland has changed hugely over the last 20 years or so. Like when I grew up, the range of vegetables, fruit, etc., was very, very limited indeed. Like I
Mm.
didn't see broccoli, for example, growing up. I
Wow.
never saw it, never knew what it looked like, never heard of it. It was a very, very limited range of fruit and vegetables. But Ireland is much more multicultural now. So we have not just a huge influx of people from so many other countries. Like we had, I think, 250,000 Polish people living here fairly recently.
Mm.
So people have brought their own traditions. So that's exposed Irish people to so many other types of ethnic food as well as cultural, different aspects of culture from
Right.
dance, music, clothing, art. So it's really, I'd say it's really enriched. So Ireland has changed dramatically. The stereotypes probably exist in small pockets, but
Mm.
certainly not so much in the city.
Right. I mean, it's really nice to hear that. And then part of me also feels almost sad when we talk about that a little bit because I get worried that tradition will be lost, and not to say obviously we love to see things move forward and be progressive and change, but I always feel like I hope we don't lose some of the stories and the traditions and things like that. Have you seen any effort from people there to kind of hang on to the tradition a little bit, or has it been like open arms, come on in kind of thing?
Well, it's a little bit of both. And thankfully, a lot of immigrants here have actually taken on Irish traditions,
Mm.
like music in particular, music and art, I guess, or music and the arts. And traditional Irish music is very, very much alive. It's played regularly in what we call sessions, which could be in somebody's house, it could be in a pub, a bar, it could be a concert. And you've got a lot of immigrants who've really taken to Irish music and learned the instruments, like the typical instruments used in Irish traditional music would be the fiddle, and we call it a fiddle rather than a violin, which would be more
Uh-huh.
classical music. The tin whistle, which is again is a particular Irish one. There's also a thing called a bowron, which is like an animal skin stretched over on a round frame, and you beat it with a little sort of stick.
Uh-huh.
That's the percussion. Yeah, there'll still be quite a bit of, I guess, of accordion. and there'll be things like the banjo, more so than the guitar, which is obviously an import, or the bouzouki or the mandolin. But Irish music is very, very much alive, and there are some schools which still teach only in Irish.
Wow.
So, like I learned the Irish language. Well, we had to learn the Irish language in going through school, but
Right.
most of us forgot it because it was we had to learn it. You were given no option, so we didn't learn to love it. Most of us.
Right.
But
Right.
it's a very
I think it can be a little bit similar here. We learn English and we're like, everybody's speaking this.
yeah. Yeah, it is actually Irish is actually a beautiful language. It's a very poetic language, very descriptive. Like you wouldn't use one adjective, for example. You would normally use 2 or 3 adjectives to describe if it's a sunny day. You wouldn't just say it's a sunny day. You would use words to say it's a bright, cheerful, lovely sunny day, and the words kind of flow together. So there is something quite beautiful about it.
Wow, that's something. I mean, to me, that's even looking at languages of different countries is a beautiful kind of window into the soul of the culture, the people there, and it's beautiful to hear about that. The other thing I wanted to ask you, because you had mentioned it when we talked earlier, is about the sense of humor in Ireland. And nowadays we seem to get offended about everything over here. And is that a thing in Ireland? Are people easily offended, or?
Unfortunately, increasingly so, and I think that would be a really sad loss for Irish people to lose the humor, because humor has been something I think that has sustained Irish people to generations, many generations of deprivation, poverty, and famine, and all sorts of horrendous experiences. And Irish people have had we've tended to have a pretty broad range of humor as well. Some of it can be very scathing and very direct. Some of it is irony. Some of it is lampooning people. But there's been when particularly, I guess, people of my generation, and hopefully younger generations too, when we get together, we have an understanding of what is humorous for us, and we can, shall we say, extract the you know what from each other with great glee. But it's not. There's nothing malicious or negative about it. It's just a shared experience that we all understand where it comes from.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I would hate to, just like certain traditions, I would hate to see humor lost across the board. And I think, Italians are very similar, because my ancestors are Italian. They're very much like, they're serious about their jokes, and so I would hate to see that lost for sure. If somebody came to you and said, I'm gonna go visit Ireland, and where should be the first place I should go, what would you tell them?
Well, I would. I guess I'm so versed in asking people questions. I would want to know what their interests were first. I mean, it's an obvious thing. But if you want the capital city and historical buildings, Dublin is the logical place to come. If you want a more traditional, if you like more traditional culture, then probably Galway on the west coast or in the west is a starting point, because Galway can introduce you to areas that are certainly more traditional. It's a great starting point. Whether you go around Galway County or further south into County Clare, there's hotbeds, if you like, of traditional Irish culture, traditional Irish food, traditional Irish music, and wilder countryside as well. And you've got some very, very, very beautiful places to visit. You could also go further down to the southwest around Killarney and Dingle, which also have a really vibrant, again, traditional Irish culture where Irish is widely spoken. And again, there's this huge love for Irish literature and Irish music.
I love it. I love it. So if you're going to Ireland, tell people what you're interested in, and then
Yeah,
there will be better
yeah.
suggestions for you for sure.
Breakthroughs are about more than you might think. They're about discovering who you are, digging deep, reaching to the core of your soul. They're about healing. Healing yourself, understanding your beliefs, creating a ripple effect. And it's not just those initial moments that matter. It's about using them to bring more joy into our own lives and the lives of others. It's about having fun, letting loose, enjoying every moment life has to offer. It's about finding a safe space. It's about creating connection. Join us each and every day for exclusive programming, special events, and a community to call home, where we invite you to explore, change the way you look at and live your life, and go beyond the breakthrough. So we ask you, are you ready? We'll see you online at thebreakthroughshow.com.
Well, I'm really excited to get into a little bit of your story today, Joseph, and some of the breakthroughs that you've experienced in your life. I mentioned before we get into some of that, I mentioned earlier that you read faces for a living, and so I would love for you to tell everybody how did somebody get into something like that?
Okay, well, there was no master plan. I was reading people as a small kid, small child. Like I can remember sitting on the floor in my parents' home and being able to read, just knowing stuff about, particularly the men, the adults. I don't know how. It was probably even before I could speak or had any kind of significant awareness of language, but I had an awareness of who people were, who was being honest, who wasn't being honest, who was, if you like, hiding stuff. And I don't mean intimate detail, but I knew a lot about people's character. And then my father would bring me to football matches, whether that be soccer matches or Gaelic football, which is one of our national sports. He would bring me to football matches as a small child, and I could see the patterns of play before they developed. I could see who was going to move where. I could see which players weren't really committed but pretending to be, things like that. And I just assumed everybody was doing it. But so that was just with me from a very early age. And it wasn't until I lived in London. I moved from Ireland to Israel and then to London. And when I lived in London, I basically started to study. I signed up for a course which I thought was going to be about whole foods and natural foods and nutrition and all of that. And that was a part of the course, but there was also a significant part of it, which was training in shiatsu, which is a branch of Oriental medicine, often referred to as acupuncture without needles. But one of the diagnostic techniques we were taught with the shiatsu was the ancient art of reading faces. So that was how I got there. And once I was introduced to reading faces, it was just like light bulbs flashing everywhere for me, because now I could start to explain what it was I was already picking up.
That's amazing, because I mean, some people might have an interest in something and then just have to study, but it sounds like you had sort of this natural ability before you even got into the classroom. Did that help you when it came to learning, already having that natural ability?
I'd say it did, yes, absolutely. And I was also helped by the fact that I was studying 3-4 nights a week and weekends, and I was also working for one of my teachers in his health food store. So as soon as somebody would come into the store, he would ask, okay, what's his condition? What's her condition? So I learned it initially as a diagnostic tool, but the more I immersed myself in it, the more I understood that the Chinese system had been used in business and politics as well. That was very much about the personality, the character, and ancestral influences, parental influences, behavior style, etc. And that became altogether fascinating for me. So it just flowed together for me. It just became like part of who I am, really.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. I'm sure it's interesting. Do you ever have a hard time turning it off? Like, do you go to watch certain people talk, maybe politicians or actors or actresses, and then go, "Oh, no, you're not telling the truth."
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And a good exercise actually for people who are interested in the whole thing of body language and reading people is to watch, particularly as politicians, when they're speaking and they're doing any kind of presentation and it appears that they're being very emotional and very expressive. Watch it with the sound on, and then rewind and watch it with the sound off, and ask if what you're watching really corresponds with what you heard. And you'll often find,
Wow. I shared with you when we talked initially that I had seen some different body language experts talking about the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case, and it was just so interesting to see, because I think it's cool to kind of compare that, and I would love to know your perspective as well. Sometimes when we hear people speak, we get a vibe, we get this feeling like something's off here, and then to see it confirmed with, well, this is what their body and their face is saying. It's an interesting experience.
Absolutely, and that was the case that kept on giving. Frankly, there was so much there.
It's so giving now, Joseph.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I'm from a professional perspective, I'm thrilled. On a human level, I just feel for both of those individuals, because they're two very traumatized individuals who should never have got together in the first place.
Right. Yeah, it's been very interesting, though, I think on many different levels, both looking at the court system and looking at processes and looking at like I said, the body language and the facial analysis has been just wild to me. Now we're all interested in what you do.
Absolutely. Yeah, keep it coming.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mentioned, when we started talking this, you mentioned a little bit that you had moved different place to place, and I know that has been part of your personal breakthroughs in your life, is that experience and exposure to other cultures and philosophies. So tell us, like, how did you come to move from place to place? Like, what did that look like in your life?
Okay, I had one of the great gifts my parents gave me was they gave me membership of the local library as soon as I could begin to read. So I was a voracious reader from a very, very early age. I would read anything I could get my hands on, whether it was a cereal box or a book, and it almost didn't matter what kind of book it was. If I had access to it, I would want to read it. But I had a particular interest in history and social history, and I guess I was fascinated initially probably by our own Irish history and the history of oppression and rebellion and all of that. And there's a lot of that in our history. But I then started reading about Israel, the state of Israel and the foundation of Israel and how it came about and all of that. And I guess the Holocaust as well, of course. And I guess I instinctively sided with Israel somehow because of the fact that what had been done to the Jewish people, and I had a sense of alignment because we were the underdogs as well, and we were downtrodden for centuries and all of that. And I also had various friends who had been to Israel to spend time on a kibbutz, and I was just fascinated by this for a number of years. And the company I was working for were closing down, so I was being made redundant. I was getting redundancy money. I thought, okay, this is my opportunity to go. Yeah. So I spent almost 6 months in Israel, and I wasn't so much introduced to or connected to Israeli culture or Jewish culture as such, because a kibbutz is an enclosed settlement anyway, and I was more introduced to the other volunteers there who were from so many other different countries. And that was just so enriching, because the Ireland I came from was very monocultural, and to be introduced to so many different nationalities, cultures, perspectives in a beautiful sunny environment where you were physically active, so you're physically fit. It was just so mind-opening, so enriching on so many levels. Like it was feeding my soul, I guess, as much as anything. And it just showed me, no pun intended, that there was a whole world out there that I would never have come in contact with if I'd stayed in Ireland. So it just like opened the doors to life.
Right, right. So there's two things that, as I've been making the change to move back to where I grew up, there's two points that I feel like I've become connected to recently, and I'm curious if either of these things have played into your life at all. One is the importance of location at any particular time in your life. We can easily use that phrase, "Home is where the heart is." Like, you can make anywhere your home, which I think is true to an extent, but I think the physical location sometimes is so important. I have felt at times where I live now, just very unable to get grounded. It has been a challenge for me to feel that true sense of home and belonging and groundedness. Did that come into play at all for you at different times during your travels?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've lived in 20 plus addresses over the course of my life so far, and there will certainly be more. And very few of them have I felt, yeah, I belong here.
Right.
I belong in my skin, but I don't belong in this location. And for whatever reason, it just doesn't feel right. And in some cases, the reasons were very obvious, but there are very, very few places where I felt, yes, this is my place.
Yeah, it's interesting to have that experience, and it's oftentimes difficult to explain to people, how important that physical location is, who they might have never experienced that before. The other thing that I've noticed is that I have felt like I needed to leave where I grew up in order to be able to come back. And you're in Ireland now, correct? So have you felt that at all? And what has your experience been with that?
Yeah, I definitely needed to leave. No question about it, because even aside from as I say, the company closing and being made redundant, I couldn't see a future in Ireland. And we were entering into a recession anyway, which didn't help, but I just couldn't see. So I definitely needed to leave. The reason I came back to Ireland was because I was living with my now ex-wife in Germany, Hamburg in Germany, and we had planned to spend a couple of years there and then probably move to Southern Europe. But my father died, and I just felt a pull to come back. Now I've been here, a lot longer than I intended, and I don't intend to spend the rest of my life here. So I'm here for now, and that's really all I can say. But there are other places pulling me.
Yeah, but would you say that you will kind of always have that Ireland in your heart? Do you carry Ireland with you wherever you go?
I am Irish. Obviously, I mean, it sounds like a very obvious stating the obvious, but and there's a particular quality of that I associate with being Irish, but I'm not nationalist. I don't do the rah 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 Ireland is the best country in the world and stuff like that. There's a quality that I associate with being Irish, and to me that, wherever I am, I carry that. So I don't feel an attachment to being here.
Yeah, I get that completely. And I appreciate your perspective on that, because that's one of the reasons that I really wanted to do this series, is because it can be very easy for us to say, my country is best and other countries don't know what they're doing. And what I've learned so far this is the 18th episode, so we're almost halfway through the series, is that every single country has amazing things, and every single country has things they need to work on. And if we think we're going to escape to somewhere that has no issues, I don't think that that's a very realistic belief to hold. Would you say, Joseph?
Oh, absolutely. Any illusion that any place is perfect. I mean, there's an old Zen saying. We mentioned Eastern philosophy. I've been massively influenced by Taoism, Zen, various other Eastern traditions. But there's an old Zen saying that life doesn't judge us; it mirrors how we are. And there's this distinct element when the stuff comes up that we don't like. It's telling us something about ourselves, whether we realize it or like it or not.
Right.
And it just means, maybe we just need to lighten a little bit of something inside us,
Yeah, very true. That mirror can be a blessing and a curse. I will tell you what. How would you say that the exposure to these different philosophies that you've experienced around the world has impacted you, both as just a human being and also in your work?
Yeah, as a human being, I would say I feel, and I probably from the time I was introduced to particularly Zen and Taoism, and I was introduced to them both at pretty much the same time, it felt like I'd come home. And I don't mean that I think I'm Eastern or Asian or anything like that, but there was something deeply wise about the traditions as I was introduced to them anyway. There was something deeply kind about them, which I think was essential and is essential for any of us as human beings. And there was, as I saw it anyway, growing up, in many regards, many ways, there was a coldness in many aspects of Western culture. There was an aggression, which doesn't necessarily, I don't mean, I have no problem with competition, but there was an unnecessary aggression in many aspects of Western culture, which to me, then and now, I could only regard as destructive. And certainly not healthy in terms of our physical well-being, our mental, emotional well-being, our spiritual well-being, or the well-being of the planet at large. And then there was a stillness that I got, particularly from Zen, because I did some Zen meditation sessions, etc. And that helped me in my practice as a therapist, because I worked as a therapist for pretty much 30 years. So that helped me to be still. And when we're being still with client, patient, whichever term you choose to use, it facilitates them to open and to reveal what's really going on for them. Because so often what I found was people would come to me ostensibly with a back problem, migraine, whatever it happened to be. But it was so often a consequence of life stress. But they had to talk about the physical dimension first before they started to say what was really going on, that they actually knew was going on deep inside them, but the pain was getting in the way. So that the stillness that came from being exposed to those Eastern philosophies was absolutely priceless.
And it sounds like you've been able to, when you talk about it, your energy changes, which is that's fascinating to me. And so I'm assuming that you've been able to take these philosophies that you've been exposed to and bring those things that you've learned and the things that you've witnessed into work with your clients, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I work primarily with business people now, so that's emerging. It's emerging more slowly into my work in the business arena, but it's emerging from me more strongly. It's like it's almost demanding expression, and which sounds like an oxymoron: stillness, demanding expression. But it requires it's almost telling me, you need to be present in a different way. And I need to bring more of that stillness in, because when we are truly still with somebody and we can open the heart, then it triggers something deep within them, because most of us have a longing for that stillness and for a heart connection with, whether it's with ourselves, well, that's the starting point, or a significant other, or the people around us, or the world. We all have that, and it's like whether you call it the inner child within us, or whatever term one uses. And language is insufficient here anyway. But we all have that deep inner longing that we can't necessarily even express with words. Right. So to be able to share the presence of it, and the softness and the gentleness, And there's no pressure here. It's all okay.
Yeah.
It's a safe space.
Yeah.
People respond. And it just, you can see it in their breathing. You can see it almost like they just release and they start to feel at peace.
Yeah. It's beautiful to know that we have the ability to create that space for ourselves and for others. And it is something that I feel like is a challenge for many of us, because we are in such a fast-paced, stress-filled world now. And it's something where we had a series on my morning show where we were talking about presence and stillness and quiet and the uncomfortableness that sometimes that can cause. Like when you ask a question to someone and they don't answer immediately, do you just sit there, or do you feel the need to keep talking and saying something? And so when we were on the show, I remember just going, "Good morning. I hope you're all having a really great day." And it was just this moment where everybody was like, this is not the never shuts up Jessica that we usually get in the morning, and what is happening here. But it was to point out that uncomfortableness that we get sometimes, and what is so wrong with silence.
Yeah, there's actually magic in silence when we allow it to be there. I've had a love of music since I was a kid, and the old Bob Dylan song "Blowing in the Wind." Mm-hmm. Well, it's like the knowing and the wisdom is all there when we get out of our heads and out of the way, and we actually know so much more than we realize. Mm-hmm. We know so much more about what's okay for us, what's true for us, how to connect with other people, how to be. But we have been living in an increasingly noisy world, as you say, and we're continually bombarded by stimulus of one kind or another, and it's like our minds are in a pinball machine, and when we step aside from it, it's strange and it can be very uncomfortable. And many people have the expectation that when they start to meditate or start to cultivate stillness or mindfulness, that everything is going to be fine and everything is going to slow down, and it just doesn't work like that. Right. Because there's so many things that are going to jump up and demand attention, like it's often referred to as the monkey mind. So it's just accepting that that's part of it as well.
Yeah, there was a meme going around online for quite some time that it was exactly how I feel, and it said, I don't have ducks, I have squirrels, and they're at a rave. Talk about having your ducks in a row. I have lots of little squirrels that are just going nuts in a tree somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not sure which meditation teacher it was who said something to the effect of, "My mind is a kind of an unsavory neighborhood, and I prefer not to go there too often."
It's so true. It's so, and it can be a challenge too, because like you mentioned that competition and everything before as well. That's something that I think adds to this constant feeling like we just need to go and do better and grow and hurry up, and it's just, I often say I feel like I'm in the wrong time. I'm in the wrong era or something. Somebody accidentally put me here and was very wrong.
Yes, I've had that on occasion too. Absolutely. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jessica Dugas, and while you might know me as the creator of the Breakthrough Show Network, I'm also a mom of 6 children. Once I became a mom, I realized very quickly that not all children everywhere start out with the same resources and support in life. Recently, I learned of an organization that believes that no child anywhere should be marginalized. The Gratitude Network identifies visionary social entrepreneurs who are working with children and youth around the world and provides them with the capacity-building resources to grow their organizations to impact 5 to 10 times more children or youth in scalable and sustainable ways. The Breakthrough Show Network is proud to host several of the world-changing entrepreneurs that are part of the Gratitude Network. If you're a social entrepreneur who serves the youth of the world and would like to learn more about being a part of the Gratitude Network, Or if you're a person or business who would like to support the mission of the Gratitude Network, I invite you to visit gratitude-network.org to learn more. Together, we can improve the lives of children and youth around the world.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited, Joseph, to get into our 10 quick fire questions today. Are you ready for them?
I hope so.
We're going to see. Okay, here we go. Number 1, what is your morning beverage of choice?
Warm water with raw honey and a little apple cider vinegar.
Ah, the healthy way. Here we
Yeah.
go. All right. Number 2, when are you most productive?
Morning or evening.
Number 3, which season is your favorite?
Summer when we get one in Ireland, and often autumn as well.
Autumn is
Fall,
the way to
fall
go
as you
for me.
call it. Yeah.
Yes. Number 4, what is something you're learning right now?
Italian.
All right. Number 5, what were your best and worst subjects in school?
Best was probably English, and worst was definitely physics or chemistry.
Chemistry was top of the list for me too on the worst. Number 6, what scares you?
Heights. And I don't have a fear of falling, but I have a fear. When I'm at a high place of any description, I have an almost an irresistible compulsion to jump.
Yeah, I have that challenge as well. It's not fun at all. Number 7, have you ever been in love?
Oh yeah, I am now.
Yes, I love it. I can tell. Number 8, what inspires you?
Gosh, so many things. Sunshine. Sounds kind of, it may sound like kind of odd, but humor. So many kinds of music. A cup of coffee with a really nice cup of coffee with an uplifting friend. Yeah, any of those and all of those.
Yes, at the same time.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Number 9, how do you enjoy your downtime, your free time?
What's downtime?
Yeah.
I don't think in terms of work-life balance anymore. I just think I love what I do. So I don't think of I don't think of work as work. I think work is fun.
I love it.
So
I love it.
That's, yeah.
All right. I think you may have answered this a little bit, but I'm going to ask anyway. Number 10, which culture do you deeply respect and or want to learn more about other than your own?
Yeah. Ancient Chinese culture, Japanese culture, and I have a love of Italy as well.
I can speak. The Italians are amazing. I'm just saying.
See. Certo.
And the Italian episode was just a couple weeks ago, before your episode. So definitely check that out.
Yeah.
But you made it. You did it. All 10 questions. Congratulations. We don't have a prize, but you did get it done.
All being here was the prize, Jessica.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I would love for everybody to learn about where they can connect with you and what they can find from you online and all that good stuff.
Yeah, the easiest way for me, the easiest way to connect with me is LinkedIn. I'm more active on LinkedIn than anywhere. I do have a website, which is clearsightcommunications.com, but to be honest, I'm so far behind in keeping that up to date. LinkedIn, I am on Facebook, but LinkedIn is the place to go.
Love it. I love it. And what different ways can people work with you, Joseph? I know that you said you're working with, I think you said executives and stuff now, but how can people work with you?
Yeah, I work with individual executive business owners, business leaders, and that's in the area of particularly communication, presentation, presence, confidence, because so many people in positions of leadership now don't believe they should be there. Or lack confidence. So I'm helping them. I describe it as helping people unearth their inner diamond. And everybody has that, man. But many people, it's like it's buried and needs to be polished. So I help people unearth that. I also love working with teams where so often the main problem with teams, or whether it's within the team or between the team and the leadership, is miscommunication and misunderstanding. So I love helping teams with recognizing as much from their visuals as much as anything, how to get the communication right, so that they actually enjoy working together. It motivates them, it enthuses them, and they're just so much more creative and productive.
Love it. I love it. And it's something that's needed. I mean, I think we can all stand to work on our communication a little bit. I know it's a hard lesson to learn, but I think it's we're a work in progress, right?
Absolutely, and it never ends. It never ends. There's always, as soon as you think you've got it, life will show you there's a little bit more to learn here. So just open to learning.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I would love to give maybe before we close out here, give everybody maybe one tip or something that they can look for when we're looking at people's faces of, like, I don't know, give us a little insight here, Joseph, on what we can be looking for.
Yeah, gosh, there's so many. I'll give you two actually. One in terms of when the conversation is ongoing. If for somebody starts to become stressed, what you'll notice is the blink rate starts to speed up. So if you see the blink rate being like that initially, and then suddenly in the conversation it starts to flutter like that, it tells you that they have become stressed about something that has just occurred, or something that has just been triggered in the conversation. So that's one to pay attention to. And the other one is actually pay attention to people's eyebrow shape. And I know women often sculpt their eyebrows. I do get that bit. But if the basic eyebrow shape is straight across, it tells you that when you're communicating with such individuals, you need to keep your information, how you explain things, quite logical and linear. A should lead to B, should lead to C. Whereas if the eyebrows are more curved, more rounded, the eyebrow shape is more rounded, it tells you that these are people-centered. So you need to take account of their feelings. And you need, even in a business environment, even in a high-pressure business environment, you need to connect with them as a person first, rather than jumping straight into business. So there's a couple of very obvious ones.
Well, and now every single one of us are paying attention to how much we're blinking and what our eyebrows look like. Yeah. I love it. I love it. Joseph, thank you so much for being with us today. It was a pleasure to get to hear a little bit of your story and how you're helping the world. I think what you're doing, like I said, is important. We need this communication assistance around the world for sure.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for watching or listening wherever you are in the world today. I want to thank Joseph for being here. He was an incredible guest, you guys. Make sure you visit his LinkedIn, which will be down below, so you can just click it and go. Don't worry about typing it in. And he was amazing. I hope you guys will go connect with him on LinkedIn as well. I want to thank you all for being here. Don't forget to join our Discord community, which is our home away from home, where we all come together. Just go to bit.ly/Discord Breakthrough, bit.ly/Discord Breakthrough, and we would love to have you there. I'm your host, Jessica Dugas, and I want to remind you to make joy a priority in your life and make every day a great day for a breakthrough.